Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to our second session. We're super excited. This is the CALA Cohort 4 Leadership Forum 2. So it's the second leadership forum. We had our first session just a few minutes ago. You had a short break, and now we're back into our session 2. And for our session 2, we have an incredible panel that's going to be here with us. We are looking at getting all the best that we can from their expertise and directly illuminating our theme, which is digital agriculture and the future of work in Africa's food systems. So do me a favor and let me know in the chat. Again, I'm just checking on our energy. Give me a number. What's your energy level like before we jump into this panel? Give me a number in the chat. A few seconds for you to give me a number in the chat. Let's see where you are. Okay. Very good. Okay. Keep that coming. Keep that coming. But for now, I just want to do a quick introduction. So agriculture has always been our continent's bedrock. I mean, everyone knows that. But we're now at the incredible inflection point where digital revolution is transforming how we grow, how we distribute, and how we consume food. This isn't just about technology for its own sake. It's about creating new opportunities, enhancing efficiency, and ensuring food security and prosperity for millions of young Africans across the spectrum. In today's session, in this particular session, we're going to explore how digital tools are reshaping everything from farm management and market access to job creation. We're going to hear from leading experts and discuss pathways, so to speak, pathways to harness these innovations for a more resilient and inclusive food future. So get ready to explore the exciting intersection of technology, talent, and food. Let's get started. To get us started, I'm going to call up our panelists real quick and give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with yours truly. She is the visionary CEO of CALA, Dr. Shiko Gitawan, is the leading voice in Africa's digital transformation. Dr. Shiko, as I call up the panelists, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. I know we have like 5 pages of an introduction we could do with you, but I want to just ask, how do you typically introduce yourself in these spaces?
I introduce myself as just Shiko. I feel like sometimes sometimes the internet lies to you about the humanity of a person. So my name is Shiko. Most important, I mean, I have many titles, but I'm Shiko. I'm your normal Nakuru girl. I speak proper Nakuru Sheng. But I am a mom. I always say I'm a lover of God. And yes, I run a company called CALA. We are Digital Innovation Lab, and our goal is to catalyze Africa's digital future. And whenever I hear about AMI, who I've known for a while, and AGRA and the work that you're doing, we're very aligned to like being able to transform Africa. For us, it's using digital. I mean, with AGRA is about agriculture, but what are those intersections about learning from AMI, agriculture, and what you're doing with tech to be able to transform the continent? That is what we are driven with. Thank you.
Fantastic. I love that. Of course, you're being a bit modest, so I have to highlight some of the work you've done, from founding Safaricom Alpha, which was Africa's first corporate innovation hub, to advising the ADB on ICT policy, working with Google, Microsoft. Plus, I love this. You're a champion for women in tech. So your voice is very critical for this one. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, let's go to one of the gentlemen we have on the panel, Mr. Elias Ngotho, Product Marketing Manager and Head Partnerships at Ishamba. I'm going to ask you the same question. For all of you, there's a long list of things we could read from accolades and achievements, but how do you typically introduce yourself in these spaces?
Good question. My name is Elias, like you mentioned. A young professional who is just trying to have a footprint and a great impact through anything that is available to me. And what is available to me is iShamba. It's a great platform where we speak to farmers every day. We interact with a huge blob of farmers every day, over 500,000 farmers. And also just simplifying complex scientific content for smallholders, because at the end of the day, the goal is to improve smallholder farmers' resilience, livelihood in the long run. and of course, help them with their daily challenges. So basically, a young professional in a nutshell, who is trying to make big moves.
Yeah. Well, speaking of big moves, could you tell us a little bit about the Africa Tech Summit that happened in Nairobi 2025? I know you presented some amazing things there.
Yeah, the Africa Tech Summit was such a good platform for us because iShamba is a startup, and we were presented with an opportunity to talk to investors. I actually presented our business model there, and it was such a good platform, very mind-blowing, at the same time very challenging, and there was a lot to learn. So I love challenging myself, and I love such platforms where I'm able to show what we are doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, so our third panelist, let me turn to Dr. Samantha Ainembabazi from Uganda, co-founder and COO of Freza Nanotech. Again, the same question. Let me see, Dr. Samantha, if you could come on video, I'd like to ask you the same question. Like, how do you introduce yourself? I know you've done pitch competitions, you've done lots of work in different countries. How do you introduce yourself in these spaces?
Yes, hello. I hope you can hear me. My name is Dr. Ainembabazi Samantha, and I'm a doctor by profession, medical doctor, and I'm also a co-founder and COO for Freza Nanotech. In such places, honestly, I'm also just Samantha, but all these titles have come with different opportunities I've gotten, different doors God has enabled me to enter, and I'm really grateful. With our innovation at Freza, we work to extend shelf life for fruits and vegetables for smallholder farmers, but the kind of demographic that we're looking at now keeps extending from just smallholder farmers to even large-scale farmers to importers, exporters. We're seeing different, even people for household use are starting to take up our product and use it. And so it has opened opportunities for us. It's opened doors for us as a team. And yeah, we're super excited to see where that takes us. Yes.
Fantastic. Extending the shelf life of produce. So it's quite interesting for me because it's not just doing one thing. You're producing, farmers can preserve their produce longer. This reduces post-harvest loss, it boosts profits, and also promotes sustainable agriculture all in one.
Yeah. Yes.
And incredible innovation. I know there was a great award that you got towards the end of last year, all the way in Rome. Please tell us a little bit about that.
All right, so last year was a very interesting year for Freza. Actually, right before the award in Rome, we got awarded in Dubai. I think a month prior. So we got the Civil Society Award for Prototypes for Humanity that was awarded by the Royal Family of Dubai, and also under Prototypes for Humanity and Dubai Future Foundation. And moving forward, a month later, we got awarded in Rome. That was the FAO Innovations Award for 2024. So was super excited. Honestly, it was an honor for us because a lot of the work we do in the background, but to see our work now start to get traction and start to get awarded is quite exciting. Yeah.
Fantastic. And we definitely share your excitement. Let me move to our final panelist, Dr. Winston Ojenge. He leads the Digital Economy Program at the ACTS. Again, like all our speakers, a lot I could say, but Winston, how do you share about yourself in this space?
Thank you very much, Sam. My name is Ojenge Winston. I'm a researcher at the African Center for Technology Studies. Also head the ACT AI Institute. It has since morphed from the Digital Economy Program into the ACT AI Institute. And my background is computer science and AI, but now I'm an excited student of ethics of AI, where most of my focus is heading. And yes, Sam, thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I know that you have constantly raised concerns around, getting stronger data infrastructures and championing green and digital innovation. In fact, maybe the one thing I was researching, maybe if you could share, in February of this year, there was something with DigiKen Consortium at Technopolis. Could you share a little bit about what that was doing towards this space?
Yes, DigiKen is a very exciting project that is starting but may well explode, scale into something bigger, depending on the funders. The funders are collectively, the UN bodies are coming together. I think it's UNDP, UNESCO, UNICEF, they're coming together to identify ways of opening up the workspace to youth, especially in the rural, and women, to be able to earn a living through digital technologies. And that is a very powerful tool, because those are resources that are lying idle in the rural, their brains and people with energies that are still in the rural and don't have access to digital technologies that then they could convert into workspaces that could earn a living for the majority of Africans that are still in the rural. It is a very exciting topic. We are coming in as a center. We are coming in as to help develop curriculum of within certain sectors. Sorry, within curriculum around the development of solar energies, technologies that could support rural operations, and we know that eventually we are certainly circling around the agriculture spaces. We don't know how it will unfold, but we are already excitedly in part of that process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Winston. All right, so you've heard from our panelists. You know that the right people to be here having this conversation on digital agriculture and the future of work in Africa's food systems. We'll have a conversation for a few minutes, and then I'll turn it over to you. So if you can put your questions, any insights, put them in the chat so that we don't miss out on them. We'll have a conversation for a few minutes and then switch over to your questions and insights. Let me start with Dr. Shiko. So with the work that you've been doing, I'm curious, how are emerging digital technologies, so we're talking AI, blockchain, mobile platforms, precision tools, and so on, how are those digital technologies transforming value chains and food systems? And where are the opportunities in that for youth employment?
Awesome, thank you so much. And as you mentioned, one of the key areas that we work on as Kala is AI, but not just building AI, is AI ecosystem building. And we work across 5 key pillars. And one of them is talent. The other one is data. The third one is compute, use cases, and finally on governance. So those are the 5 key areas, all anchored within the Africa AI, the Africa AI Declaration that was ratified by the 54 states in April. And for us, when it comes to agriculture is one of our key use cases. You remember I said use cases as one of the key things, because people have to eat. We are a big continent, right? We're 1.5 billion, and you're growing to 2.5 billion in the next 20 years. So people have to eat. We have to produce our food. And we saw what happened in Ukraine when Ukraine and Russia went to war, and now Iran and Israel are in war. We suffer. And we are huge mass, we are a huge continent, but how do we then use technology to show that we have this arable land? Yeah, somebody was saying outside of the Sahara, the rest of the continent is actually arable. And even the Sahara, we have seen what Egypt has done. How do we support this? It's doing like precision agriculture. What should be planted where, when? Yeah. So that's some of the things that have been done. Because what has been happening in Africa is, because I have a quota somewhere, I plant whatever my neighbor is planting. But is that the best for the best yield at that particular time? So precision agriculture is one of the key areas. The one use case that every hackathon I've gone to for AI and ag happens is AI in weather, predicting weather. And so the question we keep asking, are we using like our traditional data in providing this kind of content? And are young people being involved in learning some of that traditional knowledge in predicting? But the one that I'm seeing the most is food systems. From a purely food system point of view, it's from farm to fork. What does that look like? Who is predicting that? So we've been hosting what we are calling the Africa AI Awareness Week for the past 10 days. And yesterday, we had a hackathon. From Sunday until yesterday, we had a hackathon. And one of the teams came up with a brilliant idea. And this is what I want to show, how young people are being used to collect data and using historical data. Is they built a platform where it allows users to request for the best price for their produce. And it does this by two things. It scraps the internet, which is all we do. I mean, it scraps the internet, all the newspaper listings, all the, like, I have 15 eggs on Facebook, you know, all of those ones. And they're saying, okay, so an egg in Nairobi is about 30 bob, yeah? An egg in Kisumu is 15 bob. So you're able to do this. So it's real-time data. But most importantly is what their plan is, how do you employ young people is every day they are looking at what do we have in our markets and what it's costing. And every day there's a market happening in Kenya and in Africa, is how do we use these young people to go and collect the data such that within 2 to 3 years, we have enough historical data to do the prediction. Because right now, anybody who tells you prediction is using the carry number, all those numbers that are usually very official, not from the market point of view. And they're not going to inform the farmer what to produce at what time where there's a low. You know, you're saying in 3 months, we'll have no eggs in Nairobi. Start getting your chickens on the line, right? How do we start helping farmers do that? It's using these young people to go and collect this data that is very location-based, culturally and contextually relevant. And what I'm seeing from now, the hackathons that are happening around food systems is connecting is we have historical data. We have data that we can scrap for the internet, but we need the contextual data from our villages and our soko markets to be able to feed into this, for it to be holistic. And that's what I'm loving about what I'm seeing. And that is creating jobs, because that data has to be collected by somebody on a cell phone, typing it out, taking pictures and feeding it into a system that then will do this prediction in another 18 months. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very welcome. Dr. Winston, I know you do quite a bit of research in that space as well. Would you comment on that as well?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, that it's a very exciting thing that Shiko, you're doing at Kala, and I believe that it would add value to us to reach out to yourselves in time. Data is a very powerful tool, and the truth is that data in Africa is still hidden from view. It is packaged perfectly, camouflaged within the usual social interactions that we do all the time as we transact business in the casual way we do it out of the formal cycles. There's mountains and mountains of data that are able to model our interactions, our small informal level business transactions. And doing that using social media, I think, is a perfect way of digging out this data that is well camouflaged, that would enable us then to model these interactions and transactions, and then be able to predict the nature of future transactions. Because if the future transactions are predictable, then it is possible for us to plan and align ourselves to extract maximum benefit from them. And I'll also speak something. My question would, I know, connect with what Shiko is talking about in terms of data, that then we need to invest heavily in infrastructure that is able to pick this data from its source, its transactional sources, to where it is possible to put them together in a repository and then analyze them or compute on them. And that for us is the actual physical infrastructure that we need to heavily develop between academia, between industry, and between government to enable this data to come, efficiently. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for that input. And I know that you're going to also make a comment on, the role of public sector, private sector, and also academia. But let me first go to Elias. 550,000 farmers in your reach. Well done. How can we ensure inclusive access to digital tools, platforms, and skills, especially for young people in these underserved rural areas?
Great. I think maybe it would be good if I start this by asking everyone a question. Let me take you back to when you first owned your first mobile phone. How was it like? How was the usage? How did you manage to acquire that smartphone? If you can reflect on that, then maybe you'll be in a position to understand how best we can approach this question. And to me, I think we must map inclusion not by network coverage areas only, but also by actual usage across gender and geography. At iShamba, there is something that we really believe in. We believe in simplicity. Technology can be complicated, especially for underserved areas. But if we can make it simple, digestible, for that lady at the very remote areas of West Pokot, I think we can encourage them to actually love using technology. So let's move to let's first understand the barriers: accessibility, affordability. We need to promote affordable access of smartphones. Of course, we know mobile phone penetration in Africa is doing well. However, the question is, are smartphones accessible to all? So we must make smartphones accessible through subsidies. We can devise financing. We can bundle, getting this handset with agricultural loans and so on and so on. The other second thing would be we need to leverage and really push low data or offline compatible applications. Like for instance, for us, the reason why we have such a huge traction of over 550,000, which keeps growing organic, is because we just use the very basic, the very simple app, SMS. It doesn't need any connection. It doesn't need any complications to communicate via SMS. And actually, a recent study that we did showed that 90% of the farmers we have on our database prefer using SMS more than any other platform, including WhatsApp, because it's you can use it from anywhere. Exactly. So we really need to think about that. The other thing would be there is need to move from training, because most of us, what you're doing is training, and more inclined towards digital confidence building. And how do we achieve this? We can achieve this through communicating through the language that people understand. Let's have technologies in local dialects. Let's have applications speaking in local dialects, the voice in local dialects. And of course, through short community-led language-friendly modules, that is for trainings. And I think the bottom-up approach has always worked for us. The other thing is you cannot underestimate the power of social networks. There is a need to use peer learning. Those youths who are, very tech savvy can be used to communicate to those in the remote areas, and of course, make it very interesting for them to teach one another on how to leverage some of these tools that are coming up, innovations that are coming up, and so on. There is also need to involve young women in co-designing, and that is when we are testing, we can have feedback loops and also have like advisory boards from the very grassroots who can tell us the needs of the people in the very underserved areas. I believe all these approaches put together, and as you can see, it's all about the bottom-up approach, which is a very controversial phrase here in Kenya. But that is what has worked for us. And that is how we have managed to pull all the traction that we have so far.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. Dr. Samantha, I noticed you're nodding very emphatically. Would you tell me what you're thinking?
Yeah, I agree with a lot that Elias is saying, especially when it comes to creating, because a lot of people create platforms, but tailoring those platforms to fit particular demographics, right? So you'll create digital applications, but the language is not understandable. You know, they're only in English, right? So like making those platforms really applicable to the demographic that they're built for, you know, making connectivity not an issue, right? I had earlier on, I think someone mentioned that creating solar generated or solar powered systems, whereby in rural areas you're having solar powering internet connectivity. So that makes the solution more practical, right? So you create the systems that work, and especially for digital platforms, you have a lot of language barrier, a lot of systems that maybe are not applicable to the farmer, right? They don't know how to use the system. So you spend a lot of time training rather than creating something that they actually can use and easy to use, right? So I do agree with a lot that has been said. That's why I was actually nodding. You know, even like audio and visual versus a lot of typing or a lot of writing, a lot of text, right? So when you have audio and video, that is very, very easy to use. So it makes the work easier and it makes the farmers reachable. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So lots on contextualize, localize, make it simple so we can actually use the tool that you're providing us. Okay, let me come back to you, Dr. Winston. What role should public, private, and academia play in shaping the sustainable digital employment ecosystems for youth in Agric?
Doc is me or Dr. Winston?
Oh, sorry, Dr. Winston. I have so many doctors. You bear with me.
Yeah, you know, listening to my colleagues, I can almost, you know, consolidate their words into my answer, because there's a lot of convergence, and sometimes you wonder how it's possible to exploit these convergences to really transform this continent. You can see that in order to enhance the technologies to provide employment to people, youth in agriculture, some of the resources that you're thinking about quickly that needs to be in place is, of course, data. And you can see every speaker is talking about data, because data is how we model environments. We need to model our transactions so that we plan and exploit and optimize our transactions. So we need to model those environments, and we can only do that using data. And then we can predict and plan. The other resource, of course, is digital infrastructure, because this data must come from its sources and reach a certain space where it can be analyzed. And now digital infrastructure becomes important because we are talking about at consumer level. You know, like in agriculture, you know, the most essential activities happen at farm level, and data must come from there. So consumer level infrastructure would involve things like mobile phones, and most farmers, you know, farming communities would have basic phones. Yes, you can do automated data collection by putting sensors, you know, sensor networks around the farms, and using probably even satellite as the more remote sensors still pick this data. But there are some data that must come from the farmer themselves. For instance, did it rain yesterday? Okay, that you can pick from a rain gauge, from a sensor. But when did you plant? You see, that must come from from the farmer directly. So you'd want basic fonts, you want sensors. Then after data has been picked from that environment, data has to go through the networks. So do we have the right networks? Do we have telecommunication networks that are adequate to carry this data from that point to the space for analytics? So then there's compute. Now data has now reached the point where it's stored, and then analytics is committed on it. Do we have that infrastructure? And something else that is really not part of that infrastructure, and you can see it's coming out very clearly among my colleagues, vernaculars. That infrastructure is never complete. It cannot be just the equipment alone. There has to be the accessibility using vernaculars. So that means that even at data collection point, and when these platforms, these models have been built at this repository, at this central space, now the models must go back to support the activities of the farmer so that the farmer can query and know, what they need to do. It still needs to be in the right languages. Now, the other resource, the third resource, are the platforms that we build that will now support the farmer. Then the curriculum. You see, we need skill set in all these things, in developing these platforms, in collecting this data, and in use of this data by the communities, by the consumer communities in agriculture. And that means that curriculum needs to be right to support the development of these technologies. And then lastly, policy. Okay, I know there are other resources, but coming to my mind now, then is policy that can promote and also regulate, because digital technologies they are loaded with risks. And then as we promote the digital technologies, then we have to also to find ways of regulating, providing guardrails that are able to ensure that human rights are not breached. So in all these resources, then you see these three entities you're talking about: the public, that is government, the private sector, and the academia are heavily involved, because now the public sector, which is driven by government, then would drive the policy. Government has to drive the policy. It has to be the drive of policy. So other entities will contribute, but it drives. Then it has to support curriculum. Other entities may develop the curriculum, but government must embed the curriculum. And then for infrastructure, government needs to drive the public-private partnerships that can then enable, because infrastructure is very heavy investment.
Yeah.
You can see private sector where it comes in. It is going to support curriculum, because the private sector knows what happens. The private sector is where everything is happening, and they know, therefore, the skills and knowledges that need to go and advise curriculum. Private sector will also provide these problems that these youth will support, will solve in this agricultural sector, in order to provide services that go beyond just picking data. Currently, our youth are being used to just collect data, but they need to do higher level services, like design these applications. They also need to design ways of solving actual problems. So and that needs to come from.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Winston.
Okay.
I
just wanted to mention lastly that then academia will provide the research in all these problems, in policy, in curriculum, implementation, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the role government needs to drive any significant moves in this direction. Private needs to drive the curriculum so that we have education all around, but academia also, research and development needs to be shared across the board. Thank you very much. Samantha, let me turn my attention to you. What new roles and job categories are maybe emerging across the agri-food system as a result of digital transformation that even you are a part of and you're driving in that front? And maybe which ones are most accessible or scalable for young people? Where do we start?
All right. A lot of this digital revolution has brought jobs to young people. And a lot of these jobs, like Doctor was saying earlier, they come from higher up and way down as well. So the high level jobs, high skill jobs, come with designing these platforms. I do agree with the fact that young people should stop being seen as just the data collectors. I think if the curriculum is changed, if they're skilled, if they're trained, they can really be involved in designing these platforms. And to be honest, they're already designing these platforms, right? They're designing a lot of this technology. They're coming up with very interesting and very innovative solutions. And so I recently encountered the CEO of a very interesting platform called Extension Africa. And these guys are basically providing a platform whereby anyone and everyone can become an extension agent, right? Because of the digital platform provided. And they can actually earn significantly well from being an extension agent, right? So they're designing those digital platforms for extension agents, but they're also involving young people to be a part of those extension agents. So you can see how the level of employment is really increasing from designing to also being a part of it. Young people are also being involved in very critical data collection, aside from the day-to-day data collection, just analyzing the data as well. So there's a difference between collecting that data, but also analyzing it. So we have people who are analyzing like resources, data collected from, let me say, soil, how soil is doing, climate changes. So you have these young people analyzing the data. But I'll say something important as well that we're also doing at Freza is being a part of writing down our experiences, but also writing down the science and the data that we're getting from our experiments, the experiments we're running. So because we are being a part of that research and we're documenting that research, we're able to be a part of policy change and policy, drive, because we are taking down everything that we are experimenting on, and we're taking that research and putting it in writing. And so when we publish more of these things and when we put out our information or things that we have encountered along our innovative journey, we're able to influence policy because we are interacting with the technology firsthand on ground. And so from making that technology to analyzing that technology to being a part of the policies that are affecting agriculture in Africa, I think young people are really fast spread almost everywhere now. And those are just a few examples, but I'm sure there's so many other examples and there's so many other ways in which they're influencing. I'd like to just end with the social media, influencing agripreneurs that are coming up as well, because they do have platforms that farmers are marketing on now, right? And I like the way they're very authentic, they're on ground. I recently also encountered a lady, she's called Sandra, but on social media, she's called the Slay Farmer in Uganda. You can look her up. She really does go on ground and, record these farmers in their farms, doing whatever they're doing, selling their product at different showcases. So she's really on ground and uses her platform for that. So that's also another thing that young people are doing. Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing. And I think I could tell everyone in the room is nodding their head and so excited about that. It's not the time where we say the young people are coming to no, they're building the table. So instead of waiting for a seat at the table, they're building tables, they're making things happen. And when we encourage them to create the value that they are best inclined to create, then we all win. We're turning over to Q&A. And as we do that, I'm just going to read some insights. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. We want to respond to it. We have about maybe 15 minutes or so for our Q&A. So let's maximize our panelists. In the meantime, as you do that, let me read some of the submissions here. I want to say thank you so much to all our panelists. Chidinma says, I strongly believe in the need to support curriculum and subsidization of digital devices. That's similar to what Winston was saying there. And then Frank Kagoda as well, who is one of the Color Cohort 4 members. I agree with more audio than text, especially in the local dialects. Makes everyone participate in this digital era. However, it is even smarter when both are combined. The question is, how can we make agriculture compete more favorably on digital media, for instance, with entertainment industry? Shiko, do you have a quick comment on that? Dr. Shiko?
It's funny you call me Dr. Shingo. So I was actually mulling on something on the previous comment. So this comment was on.
No, tell me the one you're mulling over. Tell me the thought you had. Let's not lose that one.
Yes. So I was mulling on the person who was talking about the need for more audio, especially in rural areas. So the past 10 days, I mentioned we were doing the AI Awareness Week, and we went to really corners of the country, and an audio fast and a voice fast model is actually critical. So just as a show of hands, how many languages in Africa do you think are digitized? If you can type.
If you had to type a number in the chat, type a number. How many languages do you think are digitized? Let's see what numbers we come up with.
Let's start with how many African languages are there and how many of them are digitized.
Oh, it's going to be a tough one.
So let me give you a cheat sheet. So you're about 2,000 languages, 2,000 plus languages.
Across Africa.
Yes, about 60 of them are digitized. So 1,940 plus languages do not appear in any digital format. Even the digitized ones are so underrepresented, it's painful. Let's come home. How many words of the, let me not even start on my side, of the Kikuyu language do you think have a Unicode? No, that's the digitization, how you write it. And Kikuyu is the largest spoken language.
Keep going.
50,000 words. So you can think all the words we speak in Kikuyu, the only ones that appear in a lexicon, which is the written format, is only 50,000. And if you're Maasai, you're going to take this personally. How many of them do you think, how many words do you think are digitized in Maasai? I'm going to ask you, pick a number.
Pick a number. I'm sure it's going to be wrong. Shiko, tell us. You're keeping us on the edge.
1,000. Exactly. So when the person was speaking about like oral, I was just thinking about those conversations we've had over the last year about how do we ensure Africa is fully represented, and there's no AI model or any digital model without voice for Africa. It's not going to be inclusive enough. And that is what needs to happen for me, even in agriculture, even as we're speaking about this. I know this for Maasai because you're working with a Maasai community. We're not going to digitize it. We're not going to increase their 1,000 words. What you're going to do is capture their voices and make sure that their voices are captured in a digital format, not try and create lexicon for it. The same way with Kikuyu and Kimeru and every other language that is out there, we're going to try as much as possible to capture it such that, like the tool that we have here for commodities, a farmer can be able to listen in via us. You can send, like I liked what Elias said about sending, like using SSD and low level languages and sending questions and being able to listen in even on their Kabambe phone to the instructions in their local language. Because I always say AI and all this emerging technology is just a technology, and you can put the access layer to be anything that you want. So that was what I was mailing. I'm thinking, I feel like this connection is everywhere. We need to do something about it. And we're doing something about, like, we need to just fast track what we are doing. Yeah, that's what I was mailing on. Yeah.
No problem. No, I'll take that. Thank you for sharing that thought. Mwasiti in the chat says, does anybody see how the high cost of tech-based agriculture limits access for the majority of smallholder farmers? And more importantly, how do we make these technologies affordable and accessible, given that they make up a high percentage of the farming population? Elias, I think you have a comment on this one. How are you managing? Because I know you're scaling in terms of how many you reach. How do you manage cost of tech-based agriculture?
Yes, that's a very good question for us. We what iShamba has managed to do is we get support from development partners as well as research partners and all that. So it becomes more like a win-win for the farmer and iShamba, because we collect a lot of data from the farmer, and in return we provide farmers with information that they need when they need them. The relevance is very important here. So that win-win enables us to get resources to facilitate them with information. The other way we have managed to do this is, like I mentioned, we have leveraged SMS, because farmers receiving information via SMS is cost-free for them. And also, when they want to interact with us through the feedback mechanism that we have, they also do it via SMS, which is free for them as well. So any interactions that we have with the farmers is cost-free on their side.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. I will. Let me stick to the chat here and let's see what we have. I want to make sure we cover as many. I think Chikondi says, as we envisage engaging the young people in this digital discourse and with reference to the conversations that we are hearing, what incentives do we envisage are available for the youths? Winston, I know you've done a bit of research in sometimes what works, what hasn't worked. What seems to be the thing that gets the attention of the youth in this space?
I know the youth would, on this space, the youth could come in putting on various hats. There would be a youth who wants to come in to develop the platforms. And the incentive should be, I know government, universities, where these youths develop these initial skills, they need to support the youth more, because the youth struggle a lot. They are very poor yet at collecting data. The data literacy is a very powerful thing. So when they develop these platforms, they develop them because they know how to program. They have technical skills. They know how to develop databases, but they don't know the more social things, like how to identify the right data to collect, which is stemming from the problem, understanding of the community problems. So when they develop these platforms, the models are therefore not very precise, and they are timid to deploy them. So the youth should be supported to deploy more and more of these platforms. 90% of platforms which are developed, or AI models developed by youth, sitting on the shelves collecting data, because the precision levels are very low. So we need to support them to do that. And the youth could come in also as farmers, the more digital farmers now. And we also need to find ways of, once these platforms are many and they're out there and they're precise, then it will suddenly enable these more youthful farmers to optimize their operations. Some of the youth are going to come in as data collectors because they are sitting in the community where these operations, activities are happening, and they could also be encouraged or motivated by payment. There should be something called the data justice should be really worked on very well, so that when I come to collect data from a community, I need to be able to, I need to be very transparent. I know what I'm going to get out of this data, but part of what I get needs to go back to the sources of this data. There could be other ways of this, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn my attention to Samantha. Someone asked, how do you think food technology can help keep our food perhaps healthy, even as we increase the food supply? I ask you because you're on the medical side, but also you're using this nanotechnology to make sure our food stays healthier, longer. We want to have increased supply, but we also want the food to stay healthier. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we look at when we look at food generally and preservation of food. We have to take into consideration, firstly, that we have a lot of farmers grow things in seasons. So we also take that into consideration when it comes to supply of food, right? Growing food out of season, that's also another technology that, there's various technologies that are coming up, biotech, even nanotech, that coming up with solutions that grow food out of season, right? Things that affect climate, things that affect the seed durability, right? All those things affect supply. Things that enable you to grow food in and out of season, those affect supply. But when it comes to keeping the extending the shelf life of food. Now that comes to the preservation side of it, right? So we're using nanotech in the case of Freza. There are very many other solutions that are on market, but for us, what makes our solution very different is the fact that we do really look deeply into the enzymes that affect rot and deteriorating of food membranes. So initially, the solutions that were there were just looking at a few enzymes. So you'd find that very many factors were not put in consideration. So shelf life was extended for just a few days. The reason why we can extend our shelf life longer is because right now we're looking at about 10 different enzymes, right? So we're tackling and inhibiting those processes right from the point that it happens scientifically. And then we're looking at the biology of each particular fruit. So even the formulations that we have and we tackle are very tailored. So I think even other solutions that come up, really tailoring the preservation to a particular category of fruit. So initially, when we started with Freza, we were looking at climacteric fruits, right? These are fruits that rot off the tree. And now we are expanding our reach to even those that ripen on the tree. You know, we're looking at various fruits. We're looking at those that are in between fruits and vegetables, those that are vegetables, those that tend to be dry, have had coverings like passion fruits. We're even looking at dates now. So really, science is a very interesting thing, and I think young people just going down and studying these life processes and finding solutions that preserve these fruits and vegetables is quite interesting. So yeah, when you ask that, like when you look at supply, that's a different thing, and when you look at preservation, that's also a different thing. So yeah, that's basically it.
Well, maybe follow-up question to that would, because other people's solutions are just inject the plants in, like bring in all
Yeah.
these things that we don't want, that actually compromise the quality of the food.
Yeah.
How do you what kind of policies do you think we should be looking at in order to scale this kind of thinking that you've just shared?
When it comes to policy, it's tricky, but I'd say, firstly, because for us as Freza, we're going through very, very thorough processes to certify our product in different regions and in different like geographical areas. So that really does protect the user. So by the time someone is putting out a solution on shelf to say that this will preserve, then a farmer can trust it, right? In Uganda, we have URSP, and even in other different regions, there's various boards that study these things. And you know, we have Nogano as well, that really wants to look at if the product is organic and what percentage of organic is it, you know, are there some inorganic substances, are they harmful or not harmful? So all those processes are in place to check the solution. However, I must say, in the contrary, I hope that young people are supported in these processes, because many interesting and good innovations die because the processes are gruesome, and the young people are not supported through those processes. And because innovations are usually nuances and they're new things, you find that there are no standards that even support them. So they have to come up with standards, formulate their own standards, and then they're vetted against those standards. So it becomes a very gruesome process, and very many innovations die in that. So they do still need to be supported in that light. So as much as they are being checked, they also do need to be supported.
Not just policed, but supported. Shiko,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you for your ideas on how we actually support the youth who are actually trying to do something meaningful here. But let me start. So we have about 4 minutes to the end. Quick responses for these ones. Elias, someone is making a case. How can we make agriculture compete more favorably on digital media? For instance, with entertainment industry. You, sir, have figured out how to use media and agri and push it. So is it a fight for, or do we work with, or how, I mean, what's your thinking? I'm curious. You're the person most certified to answer that question.
Interesting. Yeah. So actually, iShamba is associated to one of the East Africa's most popular farm makeover reality TV show. It's called Shamba Shape Up. And Shamba Shape Up has become very popular because what we did is we understood farmers tend to listen, or rather, is one thing advising the farmer, is another having them implement what you're advising them to do. And the best way we realized to do this is farmers tend to listen more to their peers more than anyone else, including the digital advisories, the information they get from these platforms. And so these are the people we tapped, and these are the people we captured and were able to watch the Shamba Shape Up show. So through the power of social networks, we were able to reach out to very many farmers and get a huge traction. Another very effective means that we were able to use is influencers. Something is emerging, something is coming up, is called, that we call agricultural influencers, the likes of, there is this guy called Roger Skirwa. You can find him on social media platforms, Caleb Karuga, and they're making agriculture look cool. And so this trend is really coming up, and we have tapped into that as well. If you have watched our show recently, you'll realize we have like a drama series that is trying to make everything agriculture look cool for the young people, and we are getting a lot of engagements from that from young people. So it's really all about understanding how to communicate to the audiences and to the target people that you want to communicate a certain message. So the cake is big, the cake is very big, and I actually feel like there is not enough people who have come into this space and tap into it. But of course, these digital influencers are coming up, and they are really getting a lot of attention from young people. So yeah, watch this space. But that is, for us, that is how we have done it. I don't know if I have answered the question, but basically that is how we have handled this space.
All right, fantastic. I love it. Okay, so we have 2 minutes. Dr. Shiko, I wanted you to respond to how do we motivate, not just police the youth and so on. How do we motivate? And then we'll do quick parting shots. We have 2 minutes.
I was going to quote iShamba, because even my mother watches iShamba, not just the young people. But what I love is this new trend called M-Pesa Farmer. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on mostly Twitter. I've seen. Okay, I'm not that active on TikTok, but I've seen it on Twitter. The M-Pesa Farmer, which is primarily young. It's older Gen Zs and younger millennials. Who are saying, I'm getting that quota and I'm doing things, is making, and it's stepping away from saying the agriculture is sexy to agriculture is actually productive. You know, the young people are motivated by one thing and one thing alone, themselves, right? And how do you show them that the farming is fun, but farming is also productive and is able to add into their bottom line, is able to make money in a fun way, is able to jump into every health fad. You see a young person investing in it. What if agriculture, our conversations from farm to fork, is made in a way that young people are seeing, how can I be productive in this way? How can this be a trend I can jump onto, but that is productive to me? And I love what they're saying, talking about Karuga, talking about the Wangare from Mount Fire. She's made people in Kenya eat mushrooms. Yeah. Kenyans didn't like mushrooms. If they didn't even think mushrooms was food at all, they think it was algae. And she's made like all Kenyans love to eat mushrooms. Why? She made it look fun. And she's a young person. She picked a niche area and made it fun and trendy. And it's this whole supply chain. It's not about farming. It's what is the end of farming. How she says, I'm farming mushrooms. You can put it in your office. And here are a few recipes. And this is a health benefits. It's good for my skin. It's good for this. And that way, I think just doing that end to end, but showing them productivity is awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay, so we are right on the hour, but I want to give a minute to each of our panelists. Thank you so much for your insights, but let me get some parting shots from the three of you. Let's start with the ladies. Let's start with Samantha, Dr. Samantha.
All right, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure being on this panel. And all I'd like to say is young people are way smarter than you think, and they have a lot more to offer. Don't just bring them to the table out of pity, bring them to the table with patience to guide them, to lead them, and to know that they really do have something to bring. Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Samantha. Dr. Shiko?
I'm muted. So for me, ag is, again, we are a huge continent, yeah, and we are growing to be 2.5 billion in the next 20 years. Is how do we get these young people to see farming and agriculture as a form of eating, first of all, because they love eating, but also a form of work, yeah? But by bringing these technologies, so you don't, and adding technology as a way of engaging and interacting with their farming enterprises beyond social media. I love what Samantha was talking about, how they look at their fruits. How do we get that as a way of, like, I want to do fruit farming because I want to understand how seeds grow, making it fun, but making sure that we are feeding our continent. Thank you.
Let's make sure we're feeding our continent. Very good. All right, let's start with Elias, and then we'll end with Winston. Just a quick last minute.
Yeah, so I'd like to conclude by saying there is a lot of, we cannot underestimate the innovation and, you know, the power of the youth. All I can say is let's not make a decision for them, but with them. That's it.
Not for them, with them. I love it. Thank you so much. That inclusivity is very important. And lastly, Dr. Winston.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's always the youth, because that's the hugest resource that Africa has. Statistically, Africa's youth are going to be they're the fastest growing sector of the global population, and that is really the only resource we have beyond the other continents, and we need to capitalize and use them to actually transform this continent. I think this conversation is very topical. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I want to say in closing, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Gitau. Thank you, Elias. Thank you, Dr. Aine Mbabazi, Dr. Ojenge. Your insights today have powerfully illuminated how digital innovation is reshaping Africa's food systems and the future of work. We've explored policy, practical solutions, cutting-edge science, AI's potential. The message is clear. Africa's agriculture future is digital, powered by collaboration, inclusivity, and especially that point about a local understanding, contextualize, localize, and that's how we move forward. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to all of you who have been participating, for your insights in the chat, for your time, your energy, and your attention. We're now getting into a lunch break, and we'll be back in 20 minutes to the top of the hour, the next hour. So lunch break will be a whole hour, and 20 minutes to the top of the next hour, we'll be back. Again, thank you, and have a nice period for your lunch break. Thank you.